It's been a good while since I've done any video content, but I am really coming back into it now. And what better series to start video content on again than the Neptunia series? The Vita has a lot of Neptunia games, as you are well aware. It has the 3 main Rebirth games, which are remakes of the first 3 of the main series that originally released on the PS3, plus we got 5 spin-off games. 3 have been released, we've got today's review, and the upcoming Neptunia vs. Sega Hardware Girls that's coming this fall. The series has really got a lot, and you have to constantly wonder what they're going to come up with next. So, let's get to today's review. The Neptunia game surrounding the character Blanc is what many people might think of as a spiritual successor to Neptunia U Action Unleashed, because, like Neptunia U, it is also an action game. So, without further ado, here is my official review of Megatagmension Blanc and Neptune vs. Zombies. The story of Blanc vs. Zombies takes place in a non-canon version of game industry, where the CPU goddesses have befriended humans and have joined a school to learn more about human culture. As they do so and are nearing their senior year, however, the school is getting ready to close down, and the CPUs and CPU candidates scramble for ideas to keep it from closing down on them. Just after the game starts, Blanc is recruited by the film club to make a zombie movie. In the process of making this movie, however, real zombies start appearing around the campus, so Blanc gets an idea to take advantage of this crisis. While taking care of the zombie threat, they're going to shoot the movie with real zombies to try to get better reaction from their audience to try to keep the school from closing. Now, the story of the game is pretty much 90-95% just silly humor. There is a good amount better story here than there was in Neptunia U Action Unleashed, because there's a lot more explanation for the final boss, for why everything's going on, instead of just being completely random. Granted, you're not going to have an epic, world-conquering story, but it's something that is serious when it needs to be, and has a ton of humor in it. This is an arena-based action game with RPG elements thrown into the mix. Like Neptunia U, you'll be exploring 3D arenas while fighting hordes of enemies and bosses in the process of completing a certain objective, be it defeating a certain number of zombies or enemies, or fighting enemies until a boss shows up. So let's get on to what you can do in the game. When you first boot it up, you already have all the game modes unlocked. You have the choice of story mode, multiplay or multiplayer, gallery, and configuration. Gallery and configuration are the smallest 2 areas. Gallery allows you to view unlocked events and music tracks, and configuration lets you change settings like the controls or the language settings. Story mode is divided into its own menu. When you go into story, you can use action to play through all the story missions of the game, divided into scenes or chapters. You can go into setup, which lets you customize your characters with equipment using AP to increase stats or checking on their Lily rank status. Treasure allows you to use materials you've obtained from missions to unlock costumes for your character. Shop allows you to buy new equipment, weapons, and items to use in missions. Story mode, as I said before, is comprised of 12 different chapters called scenes. In each chapter you have various missions you can go through, and you unlock the next chapter after you complete the previous chapter's missions with a certain rank, based on how many items you use, how many times you died, and how quickly you can complete that mission. Multiplayer is a little different. All the quests are different in multiplayer, but multiplayer is where you can go into ad hoc or online co-op matches with up to 3 other players. You can create rooms, or you can join pre-existing rooms. The combat in missions is a little different from Neptunia U, but it's also a little bit different whether you're playing in story mode or you're playing in multiplayer. When you go into a mission, you are always placed in a 3D area full of enemies to fight. You will be able to fight them with a combination of light and heavy attacks, as well as comboing and linking those attacks into skills to gain share energy that allows you to be able to transform into your more powerful forms, like the HDD forms for the CPUs. When you go into combat in story mode, you choose 2 characters for a mission. You control 1 character at a time and can switch between them at any time of your choosing, so long as you're standing on the ground. The big thing with story mode is that if you die you're automatically switched to your secondary character, and you get a timer that's normally 2 or 3 minutes before your primary character revives and you can use them again. If you lose both characters, you get a game over and you have to start it over. In multiplayer, it is different. In multiplayer, you don't get a secondary character. You and all the other players in the mission only have one life. Now, if you die and another player in multiplayer isn't KO'd, then you will be able to have a timer and revive. If you're tackling a multiplayer mission by yourself, once you get KO'd, it's game over. The customization can help you, but again, there is different customization for story mode and multiplayer mode. In story mode, you can unlock various support characters that can give you effects, like IF can give you a temporary power boost, while Dagu Man can give you a bit of a health regeneration. Now that we've got the differences out of the way, let's talk about the actual combat system. Using combos is a little bit different than the previous game, Neptunia U Action Unleashed. You can still make some combos with the light and heavy attacks, but first of all, you don't have all your combos at the start. You have to level up after doing missions to use action points to learn new combos, but the main star of the combo system is linking into skills. You can button mash all you want, but a lot of the things that are going to help you, especially in boss fights, are starting a combo and then linking it into a skill, because while you're in the middle of a skill animation, you are invincible and cannot be hit by enemy attacks. This adds to the strategy for sure, but the bosses are really something that makes this game have a lot more strategy and a lot more difficulty than Action Unleashed did. In Neptunia U Action Unleashed, a lot of the battles you could button mash your way through. In Blanc vs. Zombies, you cannot just button mash your way through everything. All of the larger bosses have specific patterns that you have to go around, because if you just run up to a boss and start mashing buttons, they'll hit you with one of the attacks, launch you across the map, and suddenly half of your health meter is gone. You have to have a lot of technique with learning boss patterns and knowing how to evade and counterattack to be able to make this work. Now finally, we should talk about the length. Each story mission took me an average of about 5 to 6 minutes to do. Some of them only took a couple minutes, while some of them could take 7 or 8 minutes. Given the fact that there are 55 missions to go through, you should be able to beat story mode your first time in about 5 or 6 hours. Now if you add in all the unlockable missions in multiplayer, depending on how many friends you have or if you're going solo, you can increase this to about 8 or 9 hours. It's not a huge amount of time for an RPG, but for an action game, it's got a pretty good amount of length to it. I don't really have anything to say about controls other than the camera. The camera can really be your worst enemy at times. Whenever you get close to a wall, the camera zooms in on your character's body, making it really hard to see anything else. As far as the presentation is concerned, visually, the game looks really nice. The character models aren't absolutely perfect like you'd expect out of a PS4 game, but it's about on par with the graphics of Neptunia U Action Unleashed, which looked really beautiful on the Vita. As far as performance goes, I don't really have any complaints. I never saw any significant frame drops across the game, and the latency really stays smooth, even in a 4-player online match. Megatagmension Blanc Neptune vs. Zombies has freshened and improved on the formula that Neptunia U first introduced. The camera can really be your worst enemy at times, but all in all, this is a fun action game with a good amount of depth, a great roster for the series, and is something that Neptunia and Vita fans really should look into. Reviews to Go rates Megatagmension Blanc Neptune vs. Zombies a 9 out of 10. If you have any further questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below or head to my site at www.reviewstogo.com.